I'd like all of our new members and guests to please stand so we can give you a warm quarter 9 DFF round of applause. New members and guests? Anybody? I'd like to recognize all our generous sponsors and supporters. When I announce your name, I ask that all representatives from the company please stand so we can recognize you. Remain standing until all names are read and we'll hold our applause until the end. They are presenting sponsor, Whittier Rehabilitation Hospital, supporting sponsors, Human Power Solutions, Cedar Law, Unibank, and Webster 5. Our key sponsor, Denise Kapolka, who is my co-chair of BFF and the owner of Elms Cafe and Catering, for generously donating a Smithwood candy as a take-home gift to all of you. And she also made them herself. And a special thanks to our BFF friends and supporters of today's event, Cyprian Keys Golf Club and Karen Henderson from Westboro TV. Please join me in giving all of our sports sponsors. In the spirit of giving back during this magical season, BFF sponsors an annual fundraiser for the Grafton House so that some young women can have a much brighter holiday season. The Grafton House is a home for adolescent girls whose lives have been touched by abuse, family conflict, and crisis. BFF has helped this fundraiser for the Grafton House for 8 consecutive years, and on their behalf, I want to thank all of you for your generosity by making a donation today. We are very grateful for your continued support of this charitable cause and helping to make a difference in these young women's lives. For any of you who didn't get a chance to make a donation, we do have a collection box, and we would appreciate any financial contribution in cash or a check payable to UA. Karen and I have had a chance to go out to the Grafton House a couple of times, and it's a really amazing and remarkable place. And there was one year when the girls received the donation that we made, decided instead of shopping for holiday gifts for each other, they decided to reinvest the money in some upgrades that were needed to the house, some new things for the kitchen and some decorations, and just to sort of brighten the place up for everyone. So it's a really amazing place, and any support you can give is greatly appreciated. At this time, I'm so pleased to welcome to the podium Becky Hillman, administrator from the Whittier Rehabilitation Hospital, something like that, as our presenting sponsor. Becky.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. And it's Whittier Rehabilitation Hospital. Say it often. And by the way, happy birthday. I think you had a birthday recently. Were you 29? Yes. I knew. So I am going to mix things up a little bit. I'm not going to go over every special day. Figured, I made the font big enough that I didn't need to use my cheaters, and I'm going to give some fun facts about the holiday season. Did you know that Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree was released in 1958, sung by Brenda Lee? Do you know how old she was? 13 when she recorded that. Can you believe that? I thought that was very interesting. Did you know that in 1823, the visit from St. Nicholas, which originally introduced the world to Santa's reindeer, two of the creatures had slightly different names than what is being told today. They were Donner and Blitzen were instead Dunder and Blitzen. Not government, Dunder and Blitzen, which is the Dutch way to refer to the thunder and lightning. I thought that was interesting. The Christmas pickle. Who's heard of the Christmas pickle? Anyone? Oh, I love it. It's a good tradition in my family. And it gets your minds out of the gutter. This is actually a true Christmas tradition. It is more than just a common ornament. It's a tradition. It's, as the quirky tradition goes, the first child to find the glass pickle hidden in the tree on Christmas morning either wins a prize or the privilege of opening up the first gift. The goal? Strictly to keep kids from rushing through the process of opening presents and instead distracting them and taking time to enjoy each one. Like that, right? Did you know that the word Hanukkah means dedication? I did not. And did you know that Grand Army Plaza in New York reportedly has the largest menorah in the world on display this year from December 18th to 26th? lastly, Hanukkah and food are often associated. Actually, food is associated with every holiday this holiday season. And I will tell you that fried food in particular is important in the Hanukkah celebration, mostly because people fry their food in oil as a symbol for the miracle of oil that burned 8 nights straight, since Hanukkah is celebrated over 8 nights. So you've got latkes, you've got apple fritters, kugel, jelly donuts, and speaking of jelly donuts, over 17.5 million jelly donuts are consumed in Israel throughout the Hanukkah. That's a lot of donuts. I know. Last two more things, three things actually. Kwanzaa is a celebration of African American family, culture, and heritage, and it started by Dr. Mulana Barenga in 1966. It was originally meant to be a replacement for Christmas for Africans, but instead became an additional holiday to be recognized and celebrated. And it spans over 7 days, from December 26th to January 1st, and each day you focus on a particular moral belief and value. Kwanzaa festivities often include poetry readings, African drums, dancing, storytelling, and of course, food. There's food for everything. We've got Christmas food, we've got Hanukkah food, we've got Kwanzaa food, and let us not forget Boxing Day. Okay? So now, I don't know if anybody's recognized this. We've got Hanukkah occurring over December 26th. We've got Kwanzaa occurring over December 26th. We've got Boxing Day, which is December 26th. And this year, 2022, Christmas is on a Sunday, so people are going to celebrate on Monday, the 26th. So you better plan something incredibly special on the 26th. All right, lastly, if you had a choice, this is groundbreaking. If you had a choice, would you wear wet mittens or would you wear wet socks? I know. You don't have to answer now. That's one of these life or death situations. Would you wear a swimsuit all winter long or wear a snowsuit all summer long? And Shiri, feel free to use that one. Honestly, whatever you do. I know. These are very hard things to try to decide. I think just the takeaway is it's a time to celebrate. It's a time for everybody to come together. It's a time, the most important fact, Hallmark movies. Watch your Hallmark movies or whatever holiday you want to follow. And did you know that it only takes 2 weeks to film a Hallmark movie? 2 weeks. And that's because Grace. I know, it's very intense. Very intense. I will tell you, I'm thankful to say that I work at a rehab hospital, an outpatient center, and if they can film a Hallmark movie in 2 weeks and have that as the outcome, we create miracles in 2 weeks in my building and in my trade. So I'm so happy to say that I've been there for a number of years, and ultimately, I'd rather have some of the miracles that we put out with our patients than watching Hallmark movie. That's just a self-plug. If you get a chance, some of our miracles are on our website. Just go to our Facebook page and our website. You'll see some blogs and some of the success stories from our patients. So without further ado, I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday season. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and anything else that anybody celebrates. And to conclude, I think it's time to introduce you to Crystal, the fabulous snowwoman.
If I see any pictures show up anywhere on social media, what chamber president would ever wear this gown? I do. Who loves their chamber more than I do? You can't play an appropriate game unless you dress the part. And today we're going to have a lot of fun with playing this brief little game. And Frosty was nobody without his fabulous wife called Crystal, the fabulous snowman. All right, facilitators, do you have a snowball in your hand?
I do.
Okay. There is a prize in the middle of the table. And whoever has the snowball in the hand at the end wins the fabulous prize. So we are going to play Crystal, the fabulous snowwoman right-left game. Who's played this game before? Okay. So there's others I have to tell you what we're going to do. So when I read the story, you're going to listen for the cues of left and right. You pass the snowball continuously, left or right, based on what I said. But you're going to listen for the cues. All right? So facilitator. Remember the last person with it, but make sure you know the very end of the
left-handed snow woman was known as a very happy ice queen, living in a castle in the Swiss Alps with a 5-carat diamond ring on her left hand and 2 eyes. We're dropping the ball? And 2 eyes, both left and right, that were behind her. Okay, follow us quickly, okay? Keep moving it, never should stop in the hand. So right means right, left, left, left. It continuously moves, never stops. It's like a hot potato, yes, ma'am. Keep going. All right, right now you should be hitting it right, keep going right, until I say something else. Ready? Okay. Crystal, the left-handed snow woman, is a fairy tale, they say. She was made of bright white snow. But the story really goes, she came right to life one day. There must have been some magic left in that old silk scarf Frosty, her husband, found. For right when he placed it right around her neck, she began to dance around. Oh, Crystal, the left-handed snow woman, was known as a bit of shopaholic. And then children say she really knew how to spend, shop, and write those checks when she had a few gin and tonics. Thumpity thump left, look at Crystal go. Thumpity thump right, thumpity thump left right, over the hills to those designer stores she goes. Crystal, the left-handed snow woman, knew the sun was bright and hot that day. So she said, I'd better hurry and get to Tiffany's, Prada, and Chanel for some real fun right now before I melt away. Right down to the city she went with a credit card in her left hand, running right here and there all around Times Square. She went right down to the stores on 5th Avenue, and to her surprise, she bumped right into Frosty, her husband, known as the biggest tightwad cop, who immediately raised his right hand and yelled to her, stop. While multiple shopping bags in her right hand, Crystal, the left-handed snow woman, scurried right past Frosty that day and waved goodbye, saying, don't you worry. I know you have a $100,000 credit line on that credit card, and I will be making my way right back to those stores someday. Now, Crystal, the left-handed snow woman, returned to the castle a very happy soul, because she bought herself all the right kinds of gifts and left Frosty a great big bag of coal. The end.
Always celebrating our holiday celebration.
Here we go. I'll be ready for photos later.
It's now my great pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker. Shiri Spear joined WFXT in November 2012 as the Boston 25 Morning News meteorologist. She is a native New Englander raised in Hollis, New Hampshire, and no stranger to the challenges of forecasting New England weather. She has forecasted and reported on everything from nor'easters to ice storms to spring flooding and major droughts during her time in the Boston 25 Weather Center. Prior to WFXT, Shiri was a meteorologist at WTBJ NBC6 in Miami. Before that, she was a meteorologist and environmental reporter at WWLP TV 22 News, the NBC affiliate in Western Massachusetts. Shiri studies to become a meteorologist started at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. She then relocated to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where her husband, a U.S. Marine, was stationed. While in North Carolina, Shiri's focus turned to education. Shiri moved back to her hometown in New Hampshire when her husband, Matt, was deployed. She completed her BA in secondary mathematics education at Riviera University in Nashua and taught preschool full-time. Shiri traded 7th grade pre-algebra to follow her passion for weather and forecasting. She earned an MS in atmospheric and environmental science from UMass Lowell in 2007. Shiri stayed true to her New England roots forecasting at WWLP TV 22 in Springfield for over 3 years. She also sharpened her tropical forecasting skills at WTVJ in Miami from 2010 to 2012. Shiri and her WTVJ colleagues earned 2 Emmy nominations for their annual hurricane specials. Shiri and her husband have 2 young daughters, and she loves to bake and follows the motto, more chocolate, more delicious. BFFs, please join me in welcoming our special guest today, Shiri Spear.
Hi, everybody. Usually I have my microphone right here, not right here, so this is all a little different for me. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. I am a native New Englander, in between working in Boston and working in Springfield. I've crossed these hills a million times. I know these roads very, very well. A couple fun facts that I want to start with. Some of the questions that I always get, first off, I wake up at 12:30 in the morning. That's always one of the first questions. I get to the station by 2:30 in the morning, and I'm on TV by 4:30 in the morning. So I am a very early riser. Thank goodness I am actually a morning person, because if not, I would be in big trouble. I do my own hair and makeup. These are all, again, top questions I get. I do my own wardrobe. Work doesn't provide the makeup. They don't provide the hair help. They don't provide the clothes. So, you say a little prayer and you just hope you get it right. Thank goodness for that time in Miami, by the way. There were some really great people that taught me actually how to do my hair, which is curly, for the fact. One of the big questions that little kids tend to ask, I don't know why, but they're always like, do you make $1 million? That's one of the big questions I get from parents. The answer is no. I don't make half that. I don't make a third of that, nor do most meteorologists on TV. I think maybe Ginger Z, I don't know, maybe the network meteorologists make $1 million, but that's not a real salary. That is a big, fat lie. It would be a beautiful thing, wouldn't it? It is usually just me and a camera. So when I talk to groups like this, I do get a little bit nervous. It's kind of funny to think about, because on a daily basis, I am talking to a lot of people. It just doesn't feel like that. When you're in a room and you've got a couple anchors that are your friends and you guys are joking around during the breaks, and you've got some producers that are your friends as well, it just feels very intimate. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from my mentor when I was learning how to talk on TV, besides, what do I do with this hand? Was just talk like you're talking to your mom or your husband. So that's what I'm going to try to do with you guys today as well. I'm not going to use that weird anchor voice. Nobody likes that. I'm going to use the real voice. So here's the thing. A lot of meteorologists, especially TV meteorologists, have these big grand stories about some kind of weather event that really sparked their interest in meteorology. I've met a lot of people that say, oh, there was a tornado and the skies were green, and I fell in love with science and meteorology then. I actually have a memory in 8th grade science class of learning the different types of clouds and thinking it was the worst, most boring thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I actually remember thinking, who would ever want to study this? It is the worst. So I don't know exactly where that turned around. I think for me, it was in high school, because I had amazing teachers, which is why education was a passion of mine. I had great math teachers, I had excellent science teachers, and there was this one time in science class that Mr. Spear took somebody's assignment or somebody's book. It was chemistry class, and he lit it on fire and just dropped it on the desk. And I remember being terrified, but absolutely hooked. Science is definitely for me. This is pretty cool. So I loved that, and research shows that only 13% of high school girls are interested in STEM fields. 13%. I have 2 daughters. I have one daughter that's interested in engineering. Of that 13% of girls, interested in high school in science, technology, engineering, and math, half of them get to high school and end up changing into a non-STEM field. So I think that those are pretty dramatic stats, and I think it's interesting to look at why that happens as well. I am a meteorologist, I'm a scientist, I do my own forecast every morning, I do the presentation if there's a tornado happening, I'm doing the analysis on the spot as well. Obviously science is a passion of mine, but I was a former teacher. My whole undergrad degree was in teaching, and it's interesting to look at the reasons why some girls are actually turned away from the STEM fields. A lot of girls lose interest around the time of middle school, and I don't think it's only because they're studying cloud formations, which can get a little bit boring. But it's for reasons like peer pressure. You know, sometimes it's not considered cool. My oldest daughter is super into coding. She doesn't have any friends that want to do it. So I think part of it is as well trying to fit in. It can be very hard as a teenage girl, and when you don't feel like your friends are interested in something, I think girls sometimes lack the confidence to pursue it on their own. One of the reasons that girls as well turn away from science, technology, engineering, and math around that age is because of lack of role models. A lot of the teachers for math and science are men. A lot of the scientists that you might see in government are men. A lot of TV people, which I think we're breaking. I think a lot of like TV scientists now, I think it's about half and half with meteorologists in the Boston area. But you know, traditionally, a lot of those positions were men. And so we need more female role models that are scientists as well. And did you know that girls are also less likely to take risks? Science shows, research shows that girls are more perfectionists than boys when it comes to school. Boys, I mean, I'm talking generally here, obviously everybody's an individual. Boys are more likely to push themselves and be okay with getting a B on a test, where girls will see that B as a failure. They want the A, they want the perfect grade. And because of that, science, engineering, math, it gets hard. You know, sometimes you have to fail to succeed. And I've had several of those failures myself, and oftentimes girls aren't willing to take that risk as well. How many of you have daughters? Me too. I have two of them, 14 and 16 years old. Daughters are twice as likely to stick with a STEM field and a STEM interest if they're encouraged by their parents. Something as little as just getting that support at home is going to make them twice as likely to pursue that kind of field. So obviously I'm very passionate about science. Speaking of failures, you know, I look back at my college days with a little bit of regret, but a little bit of pride as well, because there were failures along the way that I think got me to where I am. I was very proud when I got into McGill University in Montreal. It's a very good school, but I went from being the top at my high school to being very middle to bottom of the pack and really struggling. And for me, it was that I wanted to be a perfectionist as well, but I also got a little depressed. I also got a little homesick. It was just this formula that wasn't a good fit. It was a huge school. I came from a tiny New Hampshire town. It just wasn't a great fit for me, and I did not succeed at McGill University. That's where I started studying atmospheric science. I think it was kind of the perfect storm. I got married very young. My husband and I were 19 and 20. We were high school sweethearts. We were actually junior high sweethearts. We're still married to this day, but he was in the Marines. So I bounced down to North Carolina, spent a semester at Coastal Carolina, where Coastal Carolina was kind of a community college. They don't have atmospheric science as a major. So that's where I took all these math and science classes that I'd had for 2 years, pushed it into an education degree. And then when my husband got deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, I ended up coming back home with my parents and finishing at Riviera University. And I finished with a degree in secondary math, in that I wanted to be a 7th grade math teacher. And I love the 7th graders. I still think if I was going to go back to school and teach an age group, I just love them. They're just so lovable. I mean, they have these little attitudes, but they kind of still need you a little bit. Like, my kids are teenagers now, and they really don't need like at all. So I kind of love those little 7th graders. But when I graduated, I was degreed, I was certified, and there was that piece of me that was like, man, like, I really love the weather. Like, I really want to know everything about this. You know, my dad and I used to watch the news together, and that's how the day would end before we'd go to bed. We'd always watch Mike Longbone's forecast. Like, he was my dad, Channel 56. You guys remember Channel 56? Yeah. So we used to watch his forecast. And I met him at a hurricane conference, and I told him the story, and I think I was like kind of fangirling, and I kind of embarrassed myself a little bit. I was like, my dad and I used to watch you, and like, these are like, it's so cool that I met you. Well, I told Karen the story. She was like, when was that? I was like, oh, that was like a couple years ago. Like, I'm a famous. I just think he's great. But I had all this passion to know more about the weather, so I'm glad that I went back to school, and I went to UMass Lowell. For me, that was a commuter school, so I could drive there every day. And as I was doing that, I was working, I think, 3 jobs as well at the time. But what I found at UMass Lowell was that support. You know, we talk about girls needing support and encouragement, and that was just the school where I found it. It was a small group. I think in our group there were like 8 people maybe in our master's program. I think half were girls, half were boys. We all did all our homework together. I actually had my daughter, my first daughter, I gave birth to her the first day of classes in my second year. And for anyone that's been to grad school, like those classes come around every 2 years. Like if I took time off, I would have to wait 2 years to finish my degree. So I took 1 week off, went back to school, but talk about supportive. They let me take Gabby with me in her carrier. It was a small class, there were like 8 people. She would just sleep right there in the carrier when I was in my night classes sometimes. I was a TA. Sometimes I'd like climb in that little chest carrier. I remember grading papers and her just sleeping on my lap. I remember one of my mentors like rocking her while I was trying to do stuff. It was just like the ultimate support system. And I think that that's really rubbed off on me and stuck with me. And for any intern that I've ever been a mentor to, those are the kind of things that I think are so important. You know, the encouragement, the support. In my field today, as a female meteorologist, as a broadcast meteorologist, in atmospheric science in general, not just on TV, only 15% in the field are women. In broadcast meteorology, it's about a quarter. It's around 29%. But if you look back to 1980, it was 12% women. But that was the day of weather girls. And let me just explain the difference. All right. A weather girl or a weather man, not that I would be offended if anyone called me that. But a weather girl is like a pretty face that somebody else does the forecast and somebody writes you a script and somebody else makes the graphics. They tell you what to say and they would sit there and present. You know, it's kind of like that sexist image of like the sexy weather girl, you know? That is very different from a meteorologist who is a scientist who does their own science. It takes hours before the newscast to do your own science, to analyze the data. If there's a tornado happening, do you really want a weather girl doing it for you, or do you want a meteorologist that's looking at the science? So I'm very proud to be a meteorologist, and I do think that this weather girl kind of image is something that, as a woman today, I think that we still battle a lot. You know, some of my dad's friends will get all excited and be like, oh, let me introduce you to my friend's daughter, the weather girl. That doesn't bother me. You know, you always have to think the intention. I don't think it's something that you automatically get offended when someone calls you that, but there is a big difference between a meteorologist and a weather girl. And a lot of people will be quick to correct you, just because there's a lot of work and a lot of dollars that went into that degree. You know, there's a lot of great stuff that I can tell you about my job. Like, I have had the most amazing teams that I've worked with in Springfield, in Miami, here in the Boston area. Like, it really is a family. There's only 4 of you on a team, so you are covering for each other. If someone's sick, like, you all have to step up. If someone wants vacation, like, you have to work the weekends. And having a great team is just so important in moments like those. And I've had it. But there are some struggles that we go through, like the accuracy struggle. You know, how many times have I heard, geez, it must be great to have a job where you can be wrong every day. I mean, I hear it all the time. But according to NOAA, a 5-day forecast, I think, is 90% accurate. A 7-day forecast these days is about 80% accurate. But when you bump it out to 10 days, it only goes down to about 50% accuracy, and there's reasons why. It is a challenge to forecast, and the first taste that I got of humble pie was when I was in Western Massachusetts. It was one of my first big snowstorms where I was on my own. Now, the whole team had put the forecast together, but I was the face of this shift, where we forecasted about 7 to 8 inches of snow. It was right before Christmas. I want to say this was like 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, maybe it was like 16 years ago. Forecast says 7 to 8 inches of snow. I sleep at the station because I'm like, oh, I can't drive in that. I wake up in the morning from this cot, like this awful sleep, and I go and I open the door because, I mean, goodness forbid, there's actually a window in the weather center. There wasn't. Most of my weather centers haven't had windows, actually. But I open the door and there's half an inch of snow. Half an inch. And we have forecasted 7 to 8 inches of snow. And it was just the most humbling, embarrassing. It was snowing all night on radar. Radar was lit up with snow. There was some dry and all evaporated before it ever got down to the ground. And it was embarrassing for everyone. Like, every station kind of had a bad forecast. I do know at the time, like, I was a new meteorologist. So Western Mass, I looked up to the Boston meteorologist, and there was all sorts of stuff about how the forecast was wrong. But it was just a lesson on how it impacts everybody. It was right before Christmas. We were forecasting snow that could have been 1 to 2 plow jobs per driveway. Those were plow drivers that were counting on getting paid ahead of Christmas. So a forecast, when we put it together, we always think about how it impacts people and how it affects their lives. And to bust a forecast is embarrassing, but to bust a forecast when people might feel a financial impact from that stinks. It was embarrassing. I was nervous. I remember we had to do Christmas shopping, and I just told my husband, I was like, I need like 2 weeks to just like lay low. I cannot go to the mall. I cannot go out in public. I cannot show my face. And you do, like, you eat it. People will come up to you and be like, oh, that was a terrible forecast. I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. It kind of fell apart. And even to this day, there is no perfect forecast. There will be moments where it goes wrong. I have one time missed work because of the weather. And I was so afraid I was going to get fired. But it was a couple of years ago, and it was a freezing drizzle. And it was like the finest freezing drizzle I've ever seen in my life. And it's like polished marble out there. And I was like, oh, it's only a little bit. It's not a big deal. I intended to drive to work. I pull my car out of the garage, and the car just keeps going and sliding and spinning, and it goes right out the driveway. And I couldn't even walk to my front door. I had to crawl on my hands and my knees. And I called Kevin, who had just gotten home from work, and I was like, Kevin, there's no way. There's no way. I can't, my car's in a ditch on the side of my driveway. It is so sheer ice out there. And about 10 minutes after that, we actually lost power because somebody crashed into a telephone pole down the road. So, there's real implications for what we do. We do take it seriously because of the impacts. Planning ahead is now something, well, I've always taken it seriously, but now I see freezing drizzle in the forecast. I'm like, I need a hotel room across the street. I cannot drive in that. Even last year, there was a rain event that cooled down, and on 93 in New Hampshire, I don't know if you guys remember this, all of a sudden, like that, it turned to freezing rain, and there were trucks sliding off the road. The weather can be a scary thing, and we talk life or death, and there's rare moments where our job comes down to that, but I think the biggest way it comes down to that is the planning piece and helping people plan. And, when a 7-day forecast can be 80% accurate, I think that's pretty good. And I think that we try to be pretty honest. Don't ask me what's happening this weekend. I have no idea. It looks like there might be some drizzle, there might be some lightness, there might be some flurries, but we've just got a lot of conflicting information right now, which makes it tough. And I think there's something to be said about being humble and not trying to be perfect, right? We all like to be perfect, but being honest. I think honesty is probably the biggest thing that we can bring to the job that we do. As far as other struggles go, there's mom struggle. A lot of you put your hands up having daughters. I'm sure some of you have sons as well. But if I wake up at 12:30 in the morning, I go to bed at 5. When my kids were little, they tucked me in, and then my husband would tuck them in at night. So it was always the routine they know. They didn't know anything different, but if I'm going to bed at 5, I'm missing some softball games sometimes. I've definitely missed stuff, like splitting your sleep does not work. It's actually awful. So there's been some recorder concerts, which I wish I'd missed in retrospect, where I would sleep for 3 hours, go to this wonderful concert, and then try and sleep 3 more hours, and it's exhausting. But I've worked most Christmases when my kids grew up. When you're in a team of 4, it's small. 2 of you are working on Christmas. If you have someone that's been there a long time, they've earned the right to take that holiday off. So I never complained about it. We tried to turn it into something fun, so I have lots of great pictures over the years of my little ones when they were little coming with me, and we'd put this huge blanket out, and we'd set up their Barbies, and we'd set up an iPad once we got an iPad, and they could watch movies. And recently my daughter told me that she has really great memories of coming with me to work. And so something that I viewed as negative, it's great to see that my daughter's viewed as a positive. And at the end of the day, even though I struggle with the mom guilt that a lot of us know, I think it is rewarding to be able to show our daughters, our sons, our children that if you love something and work hard at it, you know, you can love what you do. You don't have to settle for anything less than that. You should love the job you do, and I do love what I do. And there is no perfect TV schedule, by the way. I work the morning shift, and I told you my hours. The guys that are working the night shift, like when Kevin works, he gets to work at 2, and he doesn't leave until 11:30 at night. So consider that shift if you've got kids, because you're going to work before they get home from school. You're getting home from work when they're already asleep. So the only time you get to see your kids is by still not getting enough sleep and seeing them for breakfast. So there's no perfect shift in this job, and you know, at the end of the day, I do think it's worth it. Like, I've had a lot of fun. Another struggle is the image struggle. I'm just going to be really real about this. It's hard sometimes to be in the public eye. It was very hard when I had my pregnancy to be in the public eye, and I mean, people would like write things about like you just wouldn't believe the things people would write in about like bellies or like belly buttons, and it was hard. I remember the first time I consulted. I've had consultants twice, once in Miami and once here. They're kind of separate from the station, and I think they do that on purpose because the consultants come in and say terrible things to you. The first time I was told to wear Spanx, I was probably 15 pounds lighter than this, and they told me I had to wear Spanx under my clothes. It was when I was in Miami, and I was like 107 pounds. And it was hard to hear. As someone that grew up with an eating disorder, being told when you think that you're in shape and you have daughters that you're trying to set a good role model for, that you don't look right and you need Spanx to look better on TV, that was a really hard thing to hear. You know, when you work in the public eye, like there will be criticism like that. That was a hard one to take. I think that was, gosh, 12 years ago, and it still like stings a little bit to think back to that, but I'm kind of past it now. I'm kind of like, it's kind of awesome. But I still don't like the reason they told me to wear it on. But they are kind of cool. I remember a consultant told me that my arms were too muscular and I shouldn't wear a cap sleeve because it made my arms look big, and I was like, well, I have like a muscle, like I'm proud of that, like I exercise, but you know, it's just tough. And I mean, how about the public? What the public says. Facebook comments, I've actually stopped reading my Facebook comments. I have to do a Facebook Live every morning. Work wants me to do it. It's become a bit of a toxic place in the comments section for me. And as much as I would love to go through and like filter out the toxic comments, it's just not healthy for me to read them. So I don't, you know? So I hop on. I have an app that I can use where I don't even use Facebook to do it. It's posting to Facebook, but I just do my video, close it, and I'm done. Because a lot of the time the comments will be things like, you look great today, I like your dress, show me more cleavage. Like, it can be like disturbing stuff. I mean, it can't be that much of a surprise because people don't have their face to it. We know that this is a problem with social media. And this is one of the things with teenage daughters that, again, I struggle with. You know, what can I do on social media that will rub off on them the right way? So you know what I do? I do nothing. Because I don't want to do it wrong. I'll do a Facebook post, I'll do an Instagram post, and it will be strictly forecast. My kids have asked not to be on my social media, and I don't blame them. They want privacy. They want anonymity. They're teenage daughters. They want to be themselves. They don't want to be known as like the meteorologist's daughter. So I completely respect that. We've archived all the old pictures of them, so those don't pop up, and you would not be able to search my kids and see what they look like. And I actually kind of like that for them. So I think that's good. But on the note of like the image struggle, there's also anxiety struggles. I'm not going to ask how many of you struggle with anxiety because I think it's a very personal thing. I struggle with anxiety, and the first time I had a panic attack, I was in my mid-30s. It was one of the first big blizzards that we did. I was up for 2 days because usually when there's something like a big storm coming, I'll start my shift at 4 in the morning. I'll stay on until maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll stay there and we'll help with graphics. They become much better at the shifts, but this particular one, I think I was at the station from like 2 in the morning to like 10 at night. And then we walk to the hotel that's nearby because for liability reasons, they really can't ask people to drive, so they'll get you a hotel room. I think at that point there were so many feet of snow on the ground that we just walked to the hotel. I think I slept for 2 hours and then got back for my morning shift. And it was actually a cool memory because I remember I was with my friend and fellow meteorologist at the time, Sarah Robleski, and it was such a crazy blizzard that we were walking down like Route 1. Bad idea, like I can't imagine if a cloud had come. We were walking down Route 1 like this, like couldn't even look up, like in our snow gear, with our work bags, in the middle of the road. It was just crazy. It was like going sideways, and the whole time we were like, I think we were like yelling and like screaming to each other, we're like, this is nuts. But as meteorologists, we were also like really excited and geeking out over it. So we got in and we like looked at the snow totals and we were so excited, and then we realized that our chief was missing. We're like, where's Kevin? Like, did anyone wake up Kevin? Kevin's alarm did not go off. So we had to call the hotel and be like, someone wake up Kevin. But he ended up getting there and he was only like half an hour late. It wasn't really a big deal. But I have some great memories, but that particular storm was so little sleep. I took a puff of my inhaler and then I took like a sip of an energy drink on my way home and I started like vibrating. I was driving home, all I wanted to do was get home. Hadn't seen my kids in 2 days, big blizzard coverage, and I started shaking, then I started getting hot and I felt like I was gonna faint. And I ended up, I think, like around Burlington, pulling over and calling 911 because I thought I was dying. Like I did not know what was happening. I think that's a common explanation of people that have anxiety attacks where they think they're dying. So the Burlington EMTs show up, and by then I like kind of stopped shaking, but I had no idea what the heck just happened to me. And they were like, "Do you feel like you need to go to the hospital?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I think there's something really wrong with me." And so they take me. The doctor ultimately says, "Well, you have like a drug-induced panic attack between taking the inhaler, which is a stimulant, and then a few sips of like your energy drink and being exhausted. It kind of led to this panic attack." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I didn't even know." Okay, whoops, that's embarrassing. What was even more embarrassing is I didn't remember where I left my car. So my husband came to the hospital and get me, he's like, "Where did you leave your car?" I was like, "I don't know." I like, pulled off the exit and found the first gas station. He was like, "Which exit?" I was like, "I don't know, like what are the exits in Burlington?" So we like drove all around until we finally found my car. A couple of years later, we ended up doing a live segment in Burlington, and it was like, there were firefighters there, and I walked over to them, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys remember me?" And they were like, "Yeah, we weren't going to say anything. We didn't want to embarrass you." I was like, "Thank you so much for helping me a couple years ago." It was so embarrassing. They're like, "Oh, you're a trooper." So, I mean, it all turned out okay. But since then, I have also learned that my triggers are exhaustion. So some of these big storms, there's always that piece, like, in my mind that's like, don't have a panic attack, don't have a panic attack. So it's always after, it's never out there, but, you know, that can be a struggle. And the final thing that I want to talk about is the age struggle. I think this is a kind of neat one, because only 8% of meteorologists on TV that are chiefs are women. The chief meteorologist is usually the senior meteorologist. Only 8% of those are women. I don't know how long I get to do this job, but I do know that you don't usually see aging women in this job as long as you see aging men. There's nothing wrong with seeing like an older, balding male meteorologist. You know, they come with having experience and they come with having knowledge, but as an aging woman, you end up getting criticized. Last week, or it was actually Thanksgiving, I did a post about it being my 10-year anniversary at work. My first day was 10 years ago on Thanksgiving. And I said a post, and I'm like, I'm so thankful that I get to work with great people. Like, I hope I have another decade. And usually I can ignore the bad comments that are sent on Twitter. You know, 99% of the comments are great. But there was one person that wrote back, and he said, when she's gone, she'll just be replaced by someone younger and a lot better looking. That just rubbed me the wrong way. That really bothered me. So all I did was I quoted that tweet, like retweeted it as a quote, and I go, I don't think this comment would ever be directed at a man. And since then, it's had about 800 likes and about 200 replies and about 19 retweets. But for me, it was so frustrating to hear that my value to him as a female meteorologist was my age and my appearance, attractiveness, and that's it. You know, in my mind, it's so much more valuable to be knowledgeable and a good communicator and have experience. You know, around a good person, not that you would know, but you know, there's a lot of great benefits that only come with time in the field. So one of the constant things that I worry about is like what's going to happen for me as I get older. Do I think I have a good 10 more years? I do think so. I actually think of all the markets in the United States, I think this is one where I think I'll be allowed to age gracefully. It's something that I obviously worry about. My husband was in the Marines and he gave up a lot so I could do my job. He was a stay-at-home dad because of my funky hours. You know, if I have to be gone for 2 days during the blizzard, how is he going to balance that with work? Even my work schedule. You know, I'm getting up at 12:30 in the morning and I'm going to bed at 5. He gave up a lot so I could do this job. So I am the breadwinner in the family. So there's pressure that comes with that as well, you know. So I worry sometimes about, you know, am I going to age up? How do I provide for my family? These are just constant things that I get a little bit concerned about. But I do love what I do, and I think at the end of the day, being a good role model is one of the most important pieces of that. Whenever I have a young woman that's coming to intern with me, or even a man, like, the rules are you don't burn bridges ever because it's a small industry, and also because it makes you a good person not to burn bridges. But it's a really small business. You know, Sarah Robleski, who was that good friend that I worked with, I was an intern for her in college. Like, she taught me at WBZ at Channel 4. Like, I was a little like college student in there, like older college student, but I came in as an older college student, like, teach me. And we ended up working together later. You know, I got that job because she ended up giving me a reference. So it's really important. It's a smaller business than you think. I recently got my first I watched Growing Up comment, and it was from this girl, Vanessa, that I actually know. She's from Auburn, and she used to come to all our zip trips, and she would always be like, I love the weather, and she had like these cool posters, and I was like, yeah, Vanessa, and she went and studied, and she just got her first job in Northern Maine. So she sends me a lot of Twitter messages every day, and I like can't believe I'm at the point in my career where somebody grew up watching me. I actually think that's really exciting. And yeah, so it's been a great experience. I do think with any job, there are struggles that come along with it. I think from the outside, it can look very glamorous, and people think I'm showing up, and people are doing my hair and makeup, and I roll in 10 minutes before a newscast, but it's a lot harder than that. But, you know, I will be there the next Christmas for you guys with your snow maps and the best updates that I can give you. So I promise to keep doing my best, and that's that.
I think you and I will all agree that Shiri is going to break through a lot of glass ceilings along the way. She's definitely a great role model. And I think that we all think that being on TV is so glamorous. She is a scientist, she's a hard worker, she's a great role model. And we are so pleased and grateful to you for sharing what we got to see, an inside glimpse to your whole world. Thank you, Shiri. Shiri. I love BFF events.
It's real. We get to talk about real things. And real things are sometimes hard. But thank you for sharing all what you shared today. Thank you all for being here. I want to say how proud and generous all of you today. We have raised $1,590 to go to the graphics